Hi, Verbling. My name's Michaela. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And today we're talking about conditionals. We're going to start with the simplest, the zero conditional, and I will put those notes in the chat box for you. After that, we'll move on to some of the more complex conditionals and hopefully have some productive conversation and examples. If you guys have any questions about today or any other classes, or you want to schedule private classes, I'll put my name in the chat box for you. Welcome to class, Mohammed. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, my teacher?
I'm doing very well.
Thank you.
Is it the first time I've had you in class?
Yes, the first time.
Awesome. Well, nice to meet you. Where are you from?
I'm from Yemen. Nice to meet you too.
Ooh, I've never had a student from Yemen. Very interesting to have you with us.
All the teacher I have faced say that the same. I'm the first one.
It's awesome to be reaching into all the other parts of the world. I'm glad we have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you, my teacher.
Rafael, welcome to class. Welcome back to class.
Hi, Michaela.
You're having a lot of English today, huh?
Yes. I'm not working today, so I'm just seizing the day to better my English, I think.
Very nice. Free time.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Productive. That's some productive free time.
Yes.
Su Ming, welcome to class.
Hello, good to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited for this new week. We have a lot of cool cup games coming up, and I don't know, I'll be having a little free time too since I'm not teaching as much right now. So I think it's going to be a great week. What do you have planned, Su Ming? Anything exciting for this week?
I think just usually, no any difference.
I see, the same old thing. Work and swimming and whatever else.
Yes.
Cool. Well, no news is good news sometimes. All right. Francisco, welcome back.
It's a pleasure to see you again.
Good to have you here again. You're doing a lot of English today? Study time?
Yeah, I was studying
Awesome.
for 4 hours, something like that.
Wow. Wow, that's impressive. Excellent choice. All right. So I put the notes in the chat boxes for you guys. We're starting with the zero conditional, which is pretty much the most simple and basic conditional that we can work with. And I'm sure you guys will recognize it. It's very easy. So you guys can load that up on your computers if you want it, or you can follow along with me, and I'll screen share. Oops, here we are. Okay, so the top blue writing, Francisco, will you read that blue writing for us?
Okay. Zero conditional. When we talk about things that are generally or always true, we can use if, when, unless, plus a present form, plus present simple or imperative.
Thank you. So this one is less strict in its form. We use these words here to make it a conditional if, when, unless, something like that. And then the second part of this conditional is a little loose. You can use the simple present, you can use imperative, or you can use present continuous. And we'll see some examples of that here. Mohammed, will you read the examples, these 3 sentences here?
Sure. If he gets there before me, ask him to wait. When you fly budget airline, you have to pay for your drinks and snacks. Unless you need more space, a small car is big enough for one person.
Excellent, thank you. So in these examples, we have ask him to wait. Is that imperative or simple present?
Imperative.
Imperative. And we know that because there's no subject. So when there's no subject, it's imperative. And what about this second one? You have to pay. Is that imperative, simple present?
We have to be also imperative.
Could
no,
be.
present.
Could be.
We have.
I think it's simple present. So an imperative would be something like pay. I might be directing you. You know, if I'm directing you, I'd say ask him or pay. And I'm not going to use the subject. I'll just say the verb. But here, since we have a subject, probably simple present. And the last one, a car is big enough? Simple present or imperative?
Simple present.
Yeah, we have a subject there, so we know it's simple present. All right. The next part in blue. Adela, welcome to class.
Hello.
Do you have the notes?
I can connect with you with your screen. I don't have the text.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. You're welcome to follow along with me. So will you go ahead and read the blue section that I have highlighted there for you?
Oh. I can have, sorry. Google. No. You can. Yes. I see. I watch this your screen, but no.
You.
Okay. One moment. I think it's possible in Google Drive.
Okay. Well, I'll let you work that out. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask Rafael to read it for us. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right. Rafael, go ahead.
Note that we are not talking about a specific event, but something which is generally true. In the conditional clause, we can use a variety of present forms. In the result clause, there can only be present, simple, or imperative.
Thank you very much. And we have some examples here. So I'm going to highlight these first 3 examples and ask Ravi, welcome to class.
Thank you.
So do you have the notes open?
Yes.
And can you read those first 3 examples for us?
Okay, first one is if you visit London, go on the London Eye. Second one, if unemployment is rising, people tend to stay in their present jobs. Third, if you have done that, go and have a coffee.
Thank you very much. And the next 3 examples here, let's see. The next 3 are for Su Ming. Will you read those for us?
Yes. When you go on holiday, pack plenty of sun cream. It will be very hot. When I am concentrating, please don't make so much noise. When I have finished an article, I always ask Kate to read it through.
Thank you very much. So you can see that there's a lot of flexibility. We can use a variety of present forms in the if part, and then we can also use multiple conjugations in the result clause there. So there's a lot of freedom here. We also have this note. Notice that unless means the same as if not. So a lot of people have trouble using unless. It's kind of a complex word, but it means something similar to if not. And we have some examples of unless being used here. Victor, welcome to class. How are you? Are you there, Victor?
Yes. Hi, Michaela.
Hi,
Nice,
welcome to class.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Victor. Where are you from?
I'm from Spain.
Awesome. Well, do you have the notes open? I put them in the chat box. There's a link in the chat box for you.
Okay, I'm seeing it. About
Oh.
conditionals.
I'll let you get that set up. And in the meantime, I'm going to welcome Diana to class as well. Hi,
Hello.
Diana. How are you?
Fine. You?
Awesome. I'm doing well. Do you have the notes open and ready?
Yes.
Excellent. Would you like to try reading those 3 examples for us under the
Yes.
unless?
Yes. Unless he asks you politely, refuse to do any more work on the project. Unless prices are rising, it's not a good investment. Unless you've been through there yourself, you don't really understand how fantastic it is.
Thank you very much. So with these, if you have a little trouble using unless or you're a little confused about it, you can replace it with if not. So for the first example, we say unless he asks you politely, and that means something like if he doesn't ask you politely, refuse to do more work. Or unless prices are rising, if prices are not rising, it's not a good investment. So you can just replace unless with if not, if that's something that's difficult for you. Okay. So now we're going to do a little work with these ourselves. We're going to answer these questions. I'm going to ask someone to read this and read the example, and then I'll let you guys work on this a little bit. Aka, how are you?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you.
Welcome back. Do you think
Thank you.
you're ready to read that question and the example for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. What is generally true about the weather in the city you live in? Example: when you go to the beach, take plenty of sun cream. It'd be hot. It'd be very hot.
Okay, so that's an example we saw before, and it would answer this question nicely. Now I'm going to ask you guys to make a sentence as well. Tell me something about weather where you live. Tell me how it generally is. Maybe give me a tip or advice on how to deal with the weather where you live. So write a sentence and put it in the chat box using the zero conditional.
Begin.
Go ahead.
When you come to my country, take a leather jacket. It's very cold here.
Very good advice. And will you write that sentence in the chat box for us as well?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Adela, looks like you're ready also. Will you read us your sentence?
I don't write, but if you go to Spain, if you came to Spain, you need an umbrella, but not for rain, for the sun.
All right. Good
I don't.
advice. So right now it's so hot and sunny there.
Yes, it's sunny. I improvise. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. Thanks. Sorry, I saw you put something in the chat box. I thought you were ready. All right. Still waiting on a few more. Whenever you're ready with your sentence, put it in the chat box. Waiting on a few more. Whenever you're ready with your sentence, put it in the chat box. Okay, we have a few more. Akka, would you like to read us yours?
Okay, it is rainy season in Japan now. Don't forget bringing an umbrella.
Excellent. That's it's a good sentence. It's not exactly as
Whenever you're ready with your sentence, put it in the chat box.
Not bad. I think that echo is coming from Victor's audio. Victor, sometimes if you have two verbling pages open, it creates an echo. And if it's some other problem, just let me know. So Akka, your sentence is wonderful. But it's not exactly a conditional because we don't have any words that make it a conditional, like if, when, or unless. But it is the same form as a conditional, so you could easily turn it into a conditional. And it's a great sentence. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Rafael, will you read yours for us?
It's summers. Even when it's sunny, you have to take your umbrella with you.
Excellent. So there we have a pretty good conditional. When it's sunny, you have to take an umbrella with you. Awesome. Diana, will you read us yours?
Yes. When you go to the mountains, you need to dress up to not catch a cold.
Awesome. And let's see. Victor, will you read us yours? Sorry, Victor, you're muted because there was some echoing coming from your audio. You just have to unmute yourself. There we go.
When you come at the Spanish beach, take an umbrella with you.
Awesome. Great sentence. Just make sure you say to the Spanish beach. To it. Other than that, it's perfect.
Okay, thank you.
And
Unless.
oh, we have another one. Cool. Mohammed, you want to read us that one too?
Unless he returns your book, refuse to borrow it to him another time.
Awesome sentence, but there's one classic mistake that I see very frequently, and that is confusing the words borrow and lend. So borrow is when you accept something from someone else, and lend is when you give it to someone else. So I might lend you the book, and you borrow it from me.
Unless he returns your book, refuse to lend it to him another time.
Exactly. Okay, so I think some of you are still working on that first sentence, but since most of you are done, oh good. Ravi, will you read us yours?
If you will come in my country, weather is very colorful. Weather is changing in every 2 months.
Cool. So this one is a little bit, you're jumping a couple steps here because when you use will, it becomes a different type of conditional. So for the sake of zero conditional, we would say something like, if you come to my country, weather is very colorful, or something like that.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll get to some of those more advanced future using conditionals in just a second. I think pretty much everyone has read a sentence.
If you travel in, sorry,
no, go ahead, Adela.
is if you travel in summer to Valencia, you need to take comfortable clothes.
Ooh, excellent. That's a great one. Thanks, Adela. And Adela, will you read the next one for us as well? There's a question and the example. Read that one for us.
Who is in the first page, or Zero Conditional is finished? No? No. What? I have the link, but I don't know what I need to read. Sorry.
Teacher?
Has disappeared.
Is my sentence right, teacher, or need to correct something?
Which sentence?
The last one in chat box. Unless the
I
political situations change, the country will not take off.
It is a great sentence. I would probably say unless the political situation, one, because it's just one situation, and then since it's one, we have to put changes. Unless the political situation changes.
We have more one situation here in our country.
Okay, so you could say that. Usually, though, it's something more general. Like this situation is talking about all of the different parts of something.
Oh, yeah.
So you could say situations, but I think it's more common to just say one situation.
I put here take off. That mean here idiom mean go ahead or progress or develop.
That's an excellent use of excellent use of a phrasal verb. Thank you very much, Mohammed.
Thank you.
All right. So, Adela, on the second page of our notes for the zero conditional, we have some questions. We already answered the first one. What is generally true about the weather?
What is generally true about the weather in the city you live in?
And then, will you read the second question for us and the example there?
Example, what is always true about transportation in your country?
And
example,
the example?
When you fly budget airline, you have to pay for your drinks and snacks.
Thank you very much. So we're going to do one more sentence using the zero conditional to answer this question. What is always true about transportation in your country? And it's going to be the same. You guys are going to write it in the chat box. Remember to use the vocabulary like when, if, or unless, and that's what makes it a conditional. And tell me about the transportation in your country. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to finish this, and then after this, we're going to move on to our next document because we have a lot of material to get through today. Oops. We've got one more sentence from the last question. Francisco, will you read us your question or your statement, your conditional statement?
Yeah.
All right, I'll read it quickly so we can talk about it. The weather is normally mild. Anyway, if you go outside, you can't wear shorts. I think you're going to feel cold. Good one. If you go outside, you can't wear shorts. Excellent conditional. Okay. Ravi, will you read us the next one? That's yours in the Google chat. You will be safe unless you break any traffic rules. Great sentence, Ravi.
Thank you.
Perfect. No mistakes in that one. Great job. Rafael, will you read us yours?
When you commute to work in public transport, be ready to feel like a canned sardine.
That's a funny one. All right. Just use on public transport.
On.
Other than that, it looks great. Mohammed, will you read yours?
Yes, sure. Unless you have a private car, it is difficult to make yourself comfortable to transport by buses.
Excellent sentence. I might change just the last part where it says it's difficult to make yourself comfortable on bus transportation, maybe?
Oh, that's nice. I have thought about that, but I can't get it.
Sounds a little more natural that way, but otherwise it's good. Thanks, Mohammed.
Okay.
Adela, will you read us yours?
When you go to work by bus, probably you don't arrive on time.
Excellent. Unfortunate, but an excellent sentence. Aka, read us yours.
When you get on a bullet train, you can have a nap comfortably.
Ooh, very nice. All right. Victor, will you read us yours? Are you there, Victor?
Sorry. When you buy a bus ticket, you have to show it if the controller asks you.
Awesome. Great sentence.
Thank you.
And Diana, will you read us yours?
When you go to work by car, you need to be prepared for staying a long time in the traffic.
Be prepared to stay. I think makes a little more sense to stay a long time in the traffic.
Stay a long time, yes.
Excellent. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our more complex conditionals. I'm going to put those links in the chat box for you guys. Oh wait, do we have one more? No, good. Okay, so there's a link in the chat box for everybody. And this is for the rest of the conditional situations. They're a little more strict in their format. So let's talk a little bit about them. I'm going to read the first bullet point here. Conditional sentences consist of two parts: the dependent subordinate clause, if clause, and the main will clause. So the if clause is also the subordinate or dependent clause, and then we have the main clause. Now we're going to talk about the different types of conditionals. We talked about type 0 conditional, which is kind of simple. And the next one is type 1 conditional, going in order. And I'm going to ask Victor to read it for us. Will you read to us about type 1 conditional?
Yes. Type 1. The dependent. If clause usually indicates a real or possible situation that can happen in the present or in the future. And the main will clause expresses the result of the condition. Conditional sentence in type 1 is often called the real conditional because it is used for real or possible situations. This situation takes place if a certain condition is met.
Thank you very much. Now we have a note on type 2 conditionals. And Su Ming, will you read us that one?
Teacher, I'm so sorry for interrupt.
Yeah, what? What's up?
At the first conditional, zero condition.
The zero conditional?
Yes. If the result is maybe not true, or guess or estimate the result, we estimate the result. Also, we use the zero condition.
So the zero conditional is something that is generally true always. Are you asking like about the difference between zero conditional and the other ones?
Yeah. If I estimate the result, it's maybe not true, I can use zero conditional.
It has to be something that is true in your estimation. So it doesn't have to be a fact. Like maybe it's my opinion. Like if you want to take a vacation, don't go to Dallas, Texas. So that would be something like my opinion, right? But I can use the zero conditional because I believe it to be true. We use the zero conditional when something is true, and sometimes that means a fact, and other times it means an opinion. But it's different from type number 1 because type number 1 is talking about something that's a possibility, but not necessarily true. It's a possibility of being true.
Okay, thanks.
And we're going to see more examples that I think will make it a little more clear. But that's a very good question. All right. Ravi, will you read about type 2 for us in the highlighted section there?
Okay. The dependent if indicates a situation that is possible but very unlikely to occur, and the main will clause express the result of the condition.
And the note below?
Note, in if clause type second, we usually use were, even if the pronoun is I, he, she, or it. Example, if I were you, I would not do this.
Excellent. So this is slightly irregular. Usually in the simple past, I would say I was, he was, she was. But when we're talking about the type 2 conditional, we usually use were. If I were you, if she was happy, or if she were happy. But both are acceptable. So you could say was, you could say were. They're both okay. Were is a little more formal. So if I'm using it in an interview, I probably would want to use were, not was. But they're both acceptable. Okay. And type 3, I think that's Raphael. Go ahead and read it for us, Raphael.
Type 3. These refer to situations in the past. An action could have happened in the past if a certain condition had been fulfilled. Things were different then. However, we just imagine what would have happened if the situation had been fulfilled.
Thank you very much. So that's a lot of description for you guys about each of the conditionals, but it can be condensed down into something a little more simple. So we have this tiny little chart right below that says type 1, condition possible to fulfill. So we're talking about something that is possibly true in the future. Type 2 is a conditional that's in theory possible to fulfill, but not very likely. And type 3, a condition that is not possible to fulfill because it's something that's too late. Like maybe in some other land, some other world, it would be possible, but certainly not possible in this world or for our reality. And then, of course, if we wanted to add zero conditional to this list, the zero conditional would be something that is true. Something that's generally true. Okay, do we have any questions before we go on to the form of conditionals here?
More explanation about that, if you can.
More explanation about which? The conditionals?
The differences between 1 and 2 and 3. Brief summary.
Okay, so the difference is just the probability. So zero conditional is something that's true. It's of course very probable because it's true. Number 1 is...
You can say 100% for zero.
Exactly. So zero conditional is 100%. Type number 1 would be maybe something more like 80% because it's something that's possible in the future. Now, it's weird to say that it's 80% because there's not a specific amount of probability. But once we get to some of these examples, like if you look down, we have some examples. Type number 1 in our examples is I will pass the exam if I study, meaning that tomorrow I have an exam. And if I study, I will pass the exam. It's something that's likely. And if I don't study, of course, I'm not going to pass the exam. But it's something that's very likely and it's happening in the future. But then in type 2, we have something that's in theory possible to fulfill. So 2, we have the example, I would pass the exam if I studied. And even though we're using the same exact sentence, the meaning changes because now I'm saying something like, well, I'm probably not going to study, but if I did study, then I would pass the exam. But it's much less likely. So if I said sentence number 2 in the type 2 conditional, your next question would be like, well, why aren't you going to study? Because I'm telling you, I probably will not study. It's still possible, but I probably won't. It's much less likely.
We talk about something like blaming himself. Number 2, conditional 2. I would pass the exam if I said, but the action is finished. Here
No,
he
it's not.
blame himself.
No, this one is still in the future. So I know that it's strange because we're using past tense to talk about it, but it's still in the future because I'm saying if I have a test tomorrow and I say I would pass the exam if I studied, what I'm trying to tell you is that I'm not going to study, but that it's still technically possible for me to study. So it's similar to type number 1, but it's less probable. Type number 1 is very probable. If I study, I will pass the exam. So in that sentence, I'm saying that I probably will study tonight, and then I probably will pass the exam tomorrow. But if I use number 2, I say I would pass the exam if I studied. What I'm telling you is that I probably will not study, and I probably will not pass the exam, even though it's possible, but it's not probable.
Okay, we can talk about the probability come from the time we have. Maybe the first one we have a lot of time. Maybe we can do do reading. We can do something to study. But the second conditional, maybe there is no time to do that. Maybe at night, I say that at night, but at the morning I have the exam.
Yeah, could be something like that. Something maybe that's preventing you from studying. Some kind of situation like that. And then the third conditional is what you mentioned earlier. The third conditional is something that it's already too late. So the test is in the past. Say, I reached my exam and I failed my exam. And then once I see that I failed my exam, I say, oh man, I would have passed the exam if I had studied. Meaning that I'm talking about in the past, if I had studied, then I would have passed the exam. But it's finished and it's an impossible situation because it's already done. There's no changing it. Does that make sense?
Of course, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So we have the form. Underneath the explanation of the probability, we have the form. And I'm going to ask, let's see, how about Rafael? Will you, wait, Rafael, did you read something already?
Yes, type 3. Okay, I read it
Okay.
again.
Rafael, go ahead and read the form for us.
I hear some noise. It's from my microphone, or also you have it.
Oh, Hafiel, go ahead and read for us.
Yes. Form. Type 1. Simple if clause, simple present. Main clause, will, future, or modal plus infinitive. Type 2. If clause, simple past. Main clause, would plus infinitive. Type 3. If clause, past perfect. Main clause, would plus have plus past participle.
Thank you very much. And if you'll notice, type 2 and type 3 have those little stars next to them. And that's because you can replace would with a couple other words that we're going to talk about in just a little while. And the next one, the examples, which we've already kind of talked about, but I'm going to ask Mohammed to read them for us.
Affirmative, you mean?
The examples, I will pass all of those.
Okay, type 1, I will pass the exam if I study. Type 2, I will pass the exam if I studied. Type 3, I would have passed the exam if I have studied.
Excellent.
If I had studied.
And this is a quick question here, but if we were going to write this same sentence in the zero conditional, what would it be? If
I study, we can convert the sentence, maybe become the zero condition. If I study, I will pass the exam.
Okay, but that's the same sentence as type number 1. The sentence you just said is actually type number 1. The zero conditional does not use will. We do not use the future in the zero conditional. So can anyone think of what this sentence would be like in the zero conditional?
Yes, me. I can do it?
Sure, go ahead, try.
If I study, I pass the exam.
Great. Yeah, so if I study, I pass the exam. And that's something that's true, right? So I might say, I know myself, and any time that I study, I do pass the exam. That meaning it's something that's generally true in my life. And then, of course, I will pass the exam if I study means that I don't always study, but this specific time, there's a possibility that I will pass the exam if I study. Type 2, we have something less likely. I'm saying, like, I probably won't study, but if I studied, then I would pass the exam, or I might pass the exam, but it's less likely. And then, of course, type number 3 is impossible because it's in the past. So I would have passed the exam if I studied, but the reality is that I did not study and I did not pass the exam.
So the zero condition, all you have to do is to eliminate the will. So it's a, if I study, I pass the exam. Simple.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem. Okay. So affirmative and negative. We have some more examples here, and we're going to skip them since we don't have that much time today. But that's an example of every kind of statement you can make with conditionals. And then, of course, we have the star, which I mentioned to you guys before. In type number 2 and type number 3, you can change the word would with one of these other words, like could, might, may, should, or must. And I encourage you guys to use those maybe today in class or in another class so that you can practice them. But they can be a little tricky to master. Do you guys have any questions on these words? Would, could, might, may, should, must?
I have some confusion when I use them. In addition to have to and must to, I need to know the possibilities and the percentage of the percentage of them when I can use have to, the percent maybe 100% or must to 100%.
So have to is not something that we could use in this situation. Have to means it's an obligation. So I have to do the dishes. I hate doing the dishes, but I have to. It's an obligation. I must do them. But that's not something that we can use in this situation. These words are talking about, they're changing the probability sense in a little way. So would talks about the desire. I would pass the exam. It's kind of more general. And then could talks about the capability. So I could pass the exam if I studied, but maybe I'm not capable. So like something is stopping me from studying and I'm not capable of studying, so it's not true. But I'm saying I could, if I were capable, I would pass the exam. Might and may are something that's less probable. So if I use would, it's something that's like moderately probable, highly probable. But if I use might or may, it's something that's much less probable. So you can use that in the second or third conditional talking about probability. Should is something that it's important to do, something that maybe you're expected to do. Like your mom said that you need to do something. Your mom said you need to clean your room, so you could say something like, I should clean my room.
Something like advice, yeah?
Huh?
Advice, if someone advises me.
Yeah, could be advice. We use it frequently with advice.
Yeah.
And must is some kind of hard obligation. So no choice. You don't have a choice because something is forcing you. Something is forcing you. And those are pretty difficult. Those are pretty difficult to master, but you should try them out a little bit today and maybe in other classes so you can get the hang of it.
Teacher,
okay.
master word. I have read it many and many times. Maybe it have many meaning.
The word must?
Master.
Master?
Yes, I have.
Well, master could mean two things as far as I could see. I don't think they're very related to this topic, but master would be something like if someone has complete control over someone else, could be a master. Like we used to use the word master when there were slaves. So master would be the person who has control over something. And then the verb to master means like to completely know, maybe. So like I mastered the English language would mean that I am completely fluent and I know everything. I dominate the English language. I master it. So we've got the verb and the noun, which are slightly different.
Something like you stay on your toes.
Sure, something like that. Okay, so let's get some practice in. We only have 8 minutes left, but I think we can start this exercise. And then if we don't finish it, you guys can look at the answers. There are the answers attached on the next page. Or, oops. Nope, there are not answers. The answers are attached on the previous document. The one I gave you about zero conditionals. That's where all the answers to this document are. So if we do not finish this in class, you're welcome to check your work on your own. Okay, so we're going to start with type 1. And as a review, type 1 conditionals uses the simple present and will plus future. So think about that as you're filling these in. Number 1, I'm going to start on the left with Aka. Will you do number 1 for us?
Okay. If Caroline and Sue blank the salad, Phil blank the house.
So you have to get a little creative here.
Yeah. If Caroline and Sue cook the salad, Phil will clean up the house.
Sure, good one. So cook and will clean. Thank you very much. Number 2, Diana. Go ahead.
If Sue do the onions for the salad, Caroline will do the mushrooms.
Okay, so maybe we could use do, but that's usually not a verb we use with vegetables. We might use something more like chop. If Sue chops the onions, Caroline will chop the mushrooms.
Yes.
So you conjugated perfectly, just gotta change that verb to something else.
Okay.
Number 3, Muhammad.
Okay. Hang on a minute. We have if at the last sentence. Okay. Jan will clean the sitting room if Aaron and Tim clean the furniture.
Wonderful, great job. Number 4, Rafael, go ahead.
If Bob cleans up the kitchen, Anita will clean the toilets.
Perfect. Su Ming, will you do number 5 for us?
Elaine Elaine make the drinks with somebody help her carry the bottles.
Okay, good. We need will in the first blank. Will make the drinks if somebody helps her carry the bottles. Great one. Okay, now we're moving into type number 2, which is a little bit more difficult. Just to remind you guys, type number 2, in the if clause we use the simple past, and in the main clause would plus infinitive, or any of those other words like could, should, plus infinitive. So you can try to use them. They don't always work. It depends on the sentence and the situation. You guys can go ahead and try those. So number 1 in type 2, Victor, will you try it for us? Be creative with those verb blanks.
Yes. What? Yes. A moment, please. I invited all my friends if I had a house by the, if I had a house by the beach.
Great. So the second blank is awesome. The first blank, we're missing a word. We're missing the word would. So I would invite all my friends if I had a house by the beach.
Okay.
Right one.
Thank you.
No problem. Number 2, we're back to Aka. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I lost the. Oh, I cannot see the. Okay, now I see. I would have invited my friends if they had to spend their holidays on my island.
So I would invite my friends up in my yacht if they what?
If they had to, is a bit strange.
Sure. If they had to spend their holidays on my island. Kind of a funny situation, but it's a possible one.
Okay.
So that would mean like if for some reason it were totally necessary for them to be on my island during their vacation, then I would invite them up. Great one. Number 3, Diana.
We would have great parties if my friends came to my island.
Great one. Simple past and would. Okay, number 4, Muhammad.
If we think to go shopping in a big city, we would need a helicopter.
Okay. So if we thought, that one actually has to be in the
Thought.
past. If we thought
Yeah.
to go shopping in a big city, and then what did you say here?
We would need
Yeah.
a helicopter.
Would need a helicopter. Excellent. And number 5 for type 2, Rafael. Will you read that one for us?
But if my friends' holidays were over, I would feel very lonely on my own lonely island.
Excellent. If my friends' holidays were over, I would feel lonely. Great fill in the blank. Okay, so I don't think we have time for type 3 today because we have already run out of time. But like I said, all the answers to these are on the first document I sent you guys. So if you'd like to try it yourself and then check your answers, you're more than welcome to do it. And there are some questions here as well, which if you want to answer them, you can message me on Facebook or on Verbling. All right, any last questions or comments before we leave class today? Thanks for coming, and I hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.